guys, Josh from SoccerReviewsForYou.com, bringing you my first impressions plus on-feet video of the brand new Puma evoPOWER 1.3 in the pre-release camo colorway. Now inside the box they do include a string bag to go along with the shoes themselves. The string bag is white and blue in color with graphics that actually match what you're going to find on the shoes. You can see that you do have white strings on the bag, and the back of the bag is solid blue in color. Other than that, all you're going to find inside the box, as you guys can see, are the shoes themselves. So we'll get these guys out of the box really quickly, and we'll take a closer look at the pre-release edition of the new Puma evoPOWER 1.3. Now, given that this is the pre-release version, it's limited edition technically, so it does come at a premium price of $250 at full retail. I expect the regular edition of this shoe, the launch colorway, when that comes out in a couple weeks, that'll likely be around $200 or so. So if you want to spend a little bit of extra money to have something a little more limited, this is the colorway to go for. It is still available in pretty much every size, but they never mention anything about numbers, so just keep that in mind. As far as what we're going to be doing in today's video, we're going to be highlighting basically all the changes coming from the evoPOWER 1.2 to the evoPOWER 1.3, because realistically, this is the first, not necessarily major, but the first significant redesign that we've seen for the evoPOWER line, as you guys can pretty clearly see by how these things look. So tech specs, we're going to cover all of those, even though they haven't officially been unveiled. Most of the actual technologies remain the same. They've just been changed up a little bit. We're going to take a look at the weight of the shoe, as well as talk about how these things fit and feel on feet. So if you're interested in learning more, please stick around and watch the entire video. And if you are interested in a pair of these for yourself, be sure to check out the review page on my website. That'll be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you'll find Buy It Now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $250 retail price. So again, if you're interested in a pair, first link down below, go ahead and check it out. And with that being said, let's get right into the review. To start things off, let's cover all the tech specs and talk about my general impressions on the evoPOWER 1.3. But before we get into that, I want to talk about why this shoe exists in the first place, where it stands in Puma's lineup. And to explain that, you have to actually talk about the backstory, which is very interesting with the evoPOWER line. Now, Puma's research and development team came across a couple different observations through their testing. There are three main observations that kind of explain the evoPOWER design, or the evoPOWER concept, I should say. The first observation is that when you strike a ball with no shoes on at all, completely barefoot, the lack of padding that you have when making contact with the ball results in more power. The second observation is that when you strike a ball barefoot, your foot actually bends, your toes curl back, and there's this kind of recoil effect when you strike through the ball, where, as you guys can see what I'm doing with the shoe has the ability to bend back. The third and final observation is that they notice when you strike a ball and you have a little bit of padding between your foot and the ball, that results in better accuracy. So those three kind of observations are what they really focus on with the evoPOWER line, whether it's the 1, the 1.2, or the 1.3. They all incorporate pretty much the same elements in different ways. So with that being said, no shoe is going to make you strike the ball harder. No shoe is going to improve your accuracy. If you guys want to watch a really cool video on the most powerful soccer shoe, I'll actually leave an annotation on screen. You can go ahead and check it out. It's actually a test that I did a year ago, almost 2 years ago now, and really cool. I think you might find the results interesting if you haven't seen that video already. But coming from the evoPOWER 1 to the 1.2 and now with the 1.3, you can see that the upper doesn't look too far off from previous evoPOWER models. If anything, they've almost reverted back to the original evoPOWER 1 in terms of how the upper actually feels. The evoPOWER 1 was very soft. This still does have an Adapt-Lite synthetic with AccuFoam padding, by the way. The Adapt-Lite synthetic is a one-way stretch microfiber, meaning that it will stretch this way, but it won't stretch this way. So you're going to have that ability to actually have the shoe bend backwards with your foot when you strike through the ball. But when you're moving side to side, it's not going to stretch. It's going to maintain its firmness and give you a decently responsive feel considering how soft this is. And this material is really, really nice. Now, what's cool about this particular version of the evoPOWER versus the previous two is that there are actual splits in the AccuFoam padding. So you have this really soft Adapt-Lite synthetic material, and then the actual AccuFoam is physically separated and almost free floating in between all the cutoff points. So you can see where there's embossed lines in the actual shoe. That is free of any kind of AccuFoam. So they're essentially just giant flex grooves that really make this shoe feel very natural on your foot. That's the first thing that I noticed. And like I said, something that reminds me a lot of the original evoPOWER 1, but slightly more improved. The biggest difference from the evoPOWER 1 to the evoPOWER 1.2 is that the 1.2 was a little bit firmer, a little bit more reinforced, and just thinner in general. This is still thin in the parts that don't have AccuFoam, but the parts that do have AccuFoam are, like I said, thicker than what we got on the evoPOWER 1.2 and more like what we got on the evoPOWER 1, which for me personally, I don't mind at all. So the idea of the AccuFoam is to give you that little bit of padding like we talked about. They found that more padding allowed for better accuracy. So that's kind of what you're getting here with the evoPOWER 1. It's a thin Adapt-Lite synthetic with a slight amount of memory foam-like padding that really makes for kind of a hybrid of a more padded and a really thin shoe when you're actually playing in these things. Really cool experience, and again, something that's more or less exclusive to the evoPOWER line. Just to give you guys a better idea of what I'm talking about here with the AccuFoam free floating, you can actually see in the midfoot area, they leave the mesh on the inside actually kind of more open, so you can see the actual AccuFoam. It's just a thin layer of memory foam, nothing too fancy at all, and there are physical splits in between all of the targeted AccuFoam areas on the upper, which essentially spans the entire upper. So you're really getting a consistent touch on the ball despite there being different types of materials that make up the upper. But like I said, it's thin, it's flexible, it has that slight padded feel to it, and really as far as synthetics go, it has a somewhat leather-like quality in terms of just the softness of it and the type of touch that it does provide on the ball. And it's also really cool that it is so flexible. It gives the shoe a very, very natural sensation pretty much from right out of the box. You're not really going to need to break these things in very much to be nice and comfortable. Laces are off-centered, as you guys can see. There are, if you look really closely, some very, very faint kind of translucent areas on the upper. That's likely what they're going to be calling their grip text texturing, as we saw on the 1.2 as well. But just like the 1.2, it's such a minimal thing. It's not really something you're going to notice when actually making contact with the ball. Was not a significant element on the 1.2. I don't expect it to be a significant element on the 1.3 either. And you can see they did add a reinforcement layer at the toe and forefoot area on the upper where it attaches to the sole plate, just to strengthen kind of the high wear zone on the shoe. So sole separation should likely not be an issue with this particular shoe. Off-centered lacing system, as I mentioned, you can see the tongue itself is pretty much the same material as the rest of the shoe with targeted foam in it. So really, really nice and comfortable and not overly bulky either. Really like the actual tongue on these things. The heel area, it's a little bit more low cut. And again, it's almost more like the evoPOWER 1 as opposed to the 1.2 in that it's rounded at the top as opposed to squared off like we have here on the 1.2. Again, is this a significant design change? Not really. It's probably not something most people would even notice. Moving on to the heel liner, it does have the texturing, again, identical to the evoPOWER 1. It's got this kind of hex pattern on the inside, and it's slightly grippy as well. Nice padding, and again, shouldn't really cause any issues as far as heel slippage or heel discomfort in general. The insole is fully removable. I'll give you guys a quick look at that. This remains unchanged from previous evoPOWER models. Because this is the pre-release camo edition, it doesn't have any graphics on it, which is kind of unusual. So you can see it's a solid white mesh top layer, single layer of this white foam. Then you have a thicker layer of this perforated yellow foam in the heel and pretty much through the entire forefoot and toe area. So as far as step-in comfort is concerned, you have lots of foam under your feet and really no issues there whatsoever. And then moving on to the sole plate and stud pattern. This is where we probably see the most significant change from the evoPOWER 1 and 1.2 in that the actual stud pattern is different and the layout of the sole plate is a little bit different as well. So what you won't find on the regular evoPOWER, the evoPOWER 1 or 1.2, that's different on the 1.3 are kind of the flex grooves. It's the same general recipe, but they've changed up the wording a little bit. DuoFlex technology is something we have been seeing on their EvoSpeed line for quite some time. Did the evoPOWER 1.2 and evoPOWER 1 have that? Technically with these little splits right here, but they just made it a little bit more evident on the bottom of this particular sole plate. Based on what I can tell, it's the exact same thickness, and it does still seem to be a Pebax material. That again is kind of unofficial given that they haven't released any tech specs yet, but like I said, the overall functionality and the idea that it can bend backwards in the forefoot and toe area is still something that you will notice with this particular shoe. You can see you do have the GSF or gradual stability frame branding right there in very small letters. And essentially what that means is the forefoot is going to be, or sorry, the midfoot's going to gradually get softer and softer as you go from heel to toe. So the heel and midfoot area is pretty stiff. You're not really gonna get much flex out of it, while the forefoot and toe box area obviously gets more flexible. So midfoot reinforced, forefoot not so much. But again, that's kind of part of the whole idea of allowing your toes to curl back when striking the ball, giving you that somewhat barefoot sensation. And then as far as the stud pattern is concerned, the studs themselves have changed a little bit. You can see you have a combination of conical and bladed studs, which we did see on previous models, but the bladed studs are now kind of an oval shape as opposed to actual blades. The layout is identical. They haven't changed the positioning of any of the studs. The only thing that has changed is the shape of some of the studs. So you can see you still have the two bladed studs right here on the lateral side of the shoe. You still have the circular stud in the middle, the circular stud on the lateral side at the front. On the medial side at the front, you now have a bladed stud as opposed to a conical one, which is really, really nice. And then these two are now conical as opposed to one being conical and one bladed. And then moving on to the heel, you can see you have two bladed studs that kind of remain in place. And then two of them are now conical as well, which is kind of an unusual setup, but one that I don't expect to actually really feel that much different. I think the one that's going to have the biggest impact in terms of the overall performance is this stud right here, and that you're just going to get a little bit more bite and kind of the main stud that you're going to be using when pushing off for quick sprints and acceleration in general. So overall, I like the look of this sole plate. I like the look of the stud pattern. It feels really nice on feet, and it's not going to be a significant improvement over the previous model, but I definitely feel like they've made some nice changes that I think are going to be ultimately positive ones in the long run. So that's pretty much it as far as tech specs and general impressions on the evoPOWER 1.3. It's a really interesting shoe. I'm excited to try them out. And with that being said, let's take a look at the weight of these things so we can see how lightweight they are. As far as weight is concerned, I thought we'd compare the evoPOWER 1.2 to the evoPOWER 1.3 just to see if there's any significant difference between the two. So I'm going to be weighing both of these shoes for you today in real time using this scale. Keep in mind they're both in brand new condition and both the exact same size, 9.5 US. So this is a very fair comparison. We'll start off with the evoPOWER 1.2, throw them on the scale, and you can see that they weigh in at 6.9 ounces, the equivalent of 196 grams, 197, it just changed its mind. So we'll take these off, change the scale back to ounces, and we'll throw on the evoPOWER 1.3, and you can see that they weigh in at 6.7 ounces, the equivalent of 198 grams. So you're talking about a 1 gram weight difference going from the evoPOWER 1.2 to the evoPOWER 1.3, which is pretty much insignificant altogether. 1 gram is not something you're going to notice either in hand or on feet. So despite the 1.3 having a slightly more padded upper than the 1.2, the weight has not increased whatsoever. And right at the 7 ounce mark is very, very lightweight for the type of feel that this shoe provides. So again, if you're looking for a nice lightweight option, but from a shoe that isn't necessarily overly tight and not necessarily overly thin either, the evoPOWER 1.3 or the 1.2 for that matter are both very, very solid options. As far as the colorway is concerned, this obviously is the pre-release camo variation, so this is not what future colorways of the evoPOWER 1.3 will look like. This is just kind of a camouflage version prior to the official release that Puma does with every single new release that they come out with. So this one, pretty cool design. It has kind of the chevron look depending on which part of the shoe it is. At least right here where the form stripe is within the pattern, you're going to have that chevron theme going, whereas the rest of the shoe is kind of like gradually fading stripes, I guess is the best way to put it. And the combination of colors is white and blue. You can see it's obviously solid blue right here on the medial side of the toe, and then from there out, the stripes get kind of further and further spread out to the point where it stays pretty consistent, and then it thins out towards the heel where it eventually turns into solid white. As you guys can see, you have that same kind of graphic within the laces, which is kind of a cool detail. You do have the Puma logo on the tongue hidden within the actual graphic as well, where the stripes kind of change direction at 90 degrees. You have the blue heel liner, the solid white insole, as you guys saw. This one does have the little bit of tape kind of covering a seam right here in white as well as neon yellow. And then the sole plate, pretty much solid white in color with kind of off-white translucent studs. The studs look like they would glow in the dark. It's that kind of color, but I checked. They don't in fact glow in the dark, which is a bit of a bummer. That would have been a cool little feature. But nonetheless, that's pretty much it as far as the colorway is concerned. Really straightforward, really simple. I like how they look. It's nothing too crazy. I'm excited to see what the official graphics are going to look like, although Puma shoes don't really vary all that much as far as design and looks go. But nonetheless, I think this is a really good looking shoe. I'm excited to wear them, especially in this particular colorway. And again, this is a limited edition release. So if you want a pair of evoPOWER 1.3s that you're less likely to see out there on the field being worn by somebody else, this pre-release version, if you can justify paying the little bit of extra money, is definitely one that you may want to consider. So let me know your thoughts on it down below in the comment section. Do you like how these look? Why or why not? And with that being said, let's move on to the on-feet portion of the video so we can get a better idea as to how these shoes fit and of course what the sizing is like. All right, so here is a look at the evoPOWER 1.3s on feet. On my left foot, I have the stock laces that come with the shoes, and on my right foot, I have a pair of light blue with black dots SR4U replacement laces. If you're interested in a pair of replacement laces for yourself, the website to go to is www.sr4ulaces.com. You find a direct link to that website down below in the description of this video. Now, in terms of how these things fit and feel on feet, they are very, very comfortable from right out of the box. In comparison to previous evoPOWER models, like I said earlier, these remind me a lot more of the evoPOWER 1 as opposed to the 1.2, not only in terms of how the upper feels, but also in terms of how they fit. It's a little bit wider than the 1.2, which is not necessarily a good or bad thing. They're very comfortable. It's not a super wide shoe, but they're going to fit most people. And as far as stretch is concerned, it's not really going to stretch that much, but it's a slightly elasticated upper. It is a one-way stretch microfiber, so it does have some really nice flexibility and just kind of a nice natural sensation to it when these things are on your feet. Really minimal break-in time required, no heel slippage. The laces do a good job of locking your foot in place when pulled tight. And again, they just feel really, really nice. As far as the overall shape of the shoe is concerned, it does have that anatomical shape from Puma. So as you guys can see, it does kind of come to a point at the big toe and then kind of curl around. It has the shape of an actual foot as opposed to just a perfectly rounded off toe box like you'll find on most shoes from Nike and Adidas, for example. So some people don't like that about the kind of Puma lineup in general. I personally don't mind it. It's been consistent across all three evoPOWER models that we've seen so far, including the 1.3. And like I said, I actually really like how it feels, and they're just comfortable shoes in general. As far as the sizing is concerned, they run a half size small, which is consistent for Puma in general, but sizing is the same, again, in comparison to previous evoPOWER models. So instead of wearing my usual size 9 US, I bumped it up to a 9.5, and the fit and the length is absolutely perfect. So if you are looking to order a pair of these for yourself, I would strongly recommend going a half size up in order to achieve the best possible fit. And again, as far as width is concerned, these will be suitable for most foot types. All right, guys, that is it for my review of the Puma evoPOWER 1.3 in the pre-release camo colorway. Can't wait for the official launch of these things. I'm excited to try them out, as well as excited to see what the final product, or the final graphics, I should say, are going to look like. So again, look out for more content on the evoPOWER 1.3 in the very near future on this channel. In the meantime, if you guys are interested in more info, be sure to check out the review page on my website. That'll be the very first link down below in the description of this video. On that page, you'll find buy it now links with exclusive SR4U coupon codes where you'll be able to pick these guys up below their normal $250 retail price, as well as high quality images of this exact pair that I took myself. That'll give you a better idea as to how these actually do look in person. If you have any questions at all regarding the evoPOWER 1.3, leave them down below in the comments and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all my social media information linked in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.